Have you ever seen a rainbow?
Yes.
We are living an ordinary everyday life. Then comes the rain and the sun, and we notice a rainbow in the sky. It takes us by surprise, and we have a sense of awe and wonder. It takes us out of the realm of everyday life into God's world of special gifts. Out of the busyness of life, we stop and drink in the awesomeness of a symphony of colors. Scientists can tell us how a rainbow occurs, but as Christians, our thoughts turn to Noah and God's eternal covenant with the people of God. It is a great story taken from the Middle East legends and recreated to tell us about God's promise to be our God through life's storms and rainbows. The story begins in primordial time when God discovers that the people of God that God has created have gone astray. God wonders what to do and decides to destroy what God has created and start again. God places a component of creation necessary for recreation on an ark which survives a brutal flood. Coming out of the ark into the fresh air of newness of life, Noah builds an altar and makes a sacrifice in gratitude for their survival and a second chance at life in God's kingdom. God, realizing the nature of human beings, decides that the sign of the rainbow promises God will be with us through life's storms to give us guidance, confidence, hope, and joy. Destruction is no longer an option. Reconciliation is the process by which God's plan for humanity can be accomplished. It is sealed in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, the Christ. Anne Weems reminds us that God has established a covenant with us. She expresses it in poetry. She says, a rainbow is not just a symphony of colors sent to calm the storms in our souls. It is a talk with God. It is a mysterious, miraculous conversation with God, heart to heart, the very heart of God, saying to our hearts, I remember I am your God. Be my walking rainbows, so that the whole world will know to whom you belong. For I am the God who keeps promises, and I have not forgotten our covenant. We all have storms in our lives. We are reminded of the disciples who were out in a boat on the Sea of Galilee when a sudden raucous storm came up out of nowhere, which is a regular occurrence on the Sea of Galilee. Being experienced seamen, they performed all the right actions to keep the boat afloat. Finally, out of exasperation, they yelled at Jesus, who was sleeping in the stern, Wake up! Can't you see we're drowning? Don't you even care? Jesus wakes up, assesses the situation, and orders the sea to quiet down, which it does. At first, the disciples are relieved that they have been rescued. Then they begin to recognize the miraculous nature of their survival. Who is this man? They query. Where does he get this power? Jesus, amazed that they still don't seem to be aware of who he is and the purpose of his mission, replies, You have been with me this long, and you still don't trust me? Where is your faith? Sue Monk Kidd tells a story about a storm in her life. Sandy and I had just been married that summer. He was a first-year graduate student in theology, and I was a college junior. Our apartment was cramped, and we didn't have money to buy a turkey. We were both bone-tired from heavy academic loads. I had never been apart from my family on Thanksgiving, but now I was 1,000 miles away. The phone rang. It was Mom. "Hello, honey. Happy Thanksgiving." "Oh, Mom, I miss you so much." When I hung up, tears were coursing down my cheeks. Memories of Thanksgiving flooded into my head. Mom would be bustling in her steamy kitchen, counting out gleaming pieces of silver, setting out the ancient pilgrim candles that preside over our table at this time of year. By now, the kitchen would be filled with savory smells of Thanksgiving. Daddy would be bending over a browned turkey, tucking cranberries and pickled peaches around it in an artful wreath. Granddaddy would be watching my teenage brothers wrestling on the rug. An orange and brown quilt would be tucked around Grandma. The long maple table would be decked with Mom's floral patterned china. But these scenes from home, instead of comforting me, were a torment. What kind of Thanksgiving could we have with little money and not much in the pantry? In the kitchen, I managed to find a large can of spaghetti, half a jar of peanut butter, 6 marshmallows, a bottle of ketchup, and 4 potatoes. In the fridge, I found 3 apples and some cheese. I felt like a Thanksgiving Scrooge, hoarding my troubles and feeling helpless. Through my tears, I whispered a prayer. "Oh God, can you please help me?" I stared out the bedroom window. A small figure hobbled below and beyond the window. I saw a crippled boy, maybe 9 or 10. He stopped at the edge of a lot and seemed to contemplate how to maneuver his crutches across a narrow ditch. A flash of light boomeranged from the silver braces around his legs. Sunshine and shadows lighted his beautiful blonde hair. He glanced over his shoulder at the boys in the vacant lot. Red and blue caps dotted their heads, and mitts dangled from their hands. One tall boy balanced a bat across his shoulders. They stood motionless, watching the crippled boy who turned and searched for the missing ball. I glimpsed a baseball peeping through the weeds just inches past the ditch, beyond his reach. He slowly sank one crutch into the ditch and leaned forward, lifting the other crutch, his eyes fixed on the ball. He swung his lifeless legs. One landed with a thud against his crutch. Suddenly, his right shoulder dropped. His crutches lurked forward, and he sprawled across the ditch. He gasped as he went down, and so did I. Lying on the ground, he discovered that he had fallen right next to the ball. He wrapped his fingers around it and tucked it into his pocket. Standing the crutches in front of him, he inched his body forward, dragging his legs behind him. Finally, he was able to stand up. God's joy seemed to leap from his face. I watched as he slowly returned to his friends with a sign of accomplishment as he handed them the lost ball. As I watched him disappear out of sight, I wondered, did God nudge me to this spot to glimpse a small boy who was thankful for the chance to stumble after a baseball for his friends? I turned and hurried to the kitchen, where I climbed to the cabinet over the refrigerator. The silver wedding gifts, not yet used, hid under a cloud of dust. Quickly, I polished them. When I called Sandy to dinner, it was to a table shining with silver, crystal, and thickening and flickering candles. I lifted the lid of the casserole dishes. Steaming spaghetti garnished with cheese, creamy mashed potatoes, and baked apples glistened under marshmallow topping. "Where did you get this feast?" Sandy asked in amazement. "Oh, it was there all the time. It just took a little gratitude to find it." Ann Weems also reminds us that as promise keepers, we have a mission to perform. Kay Watley tells this story. A friend and I were having lunch together one day. Did you see the story in the paper? The economy's so bad, schools are sending food home in kids' backpacks. Right here in Zebulon, North Carolina. Someone should do something to help with this food crisis. My friend nodded. I know. It reminds me of that verse in Leviticus. When you harvest your crops, don't reap the corners. Make sure you leave some for the poor. Too bad people don't just share with each other. Too bad I wasn't a farmer. That night, my friend's words were running through my head. I turned on my computer. Suddenly, words came as fast as I could type. What if I got some seeds at a nursery and grew them until they were hardy enough to give away? Anyone who took a starter plant had to sign a pledge to share their harvest. Before I knew it, I had a blog. I ended with a plea. I need seeds and gardening tools. Please help. I posted that plea on every site I could think of. God bless the internet. Packets of seeds started showing up in my mailbox. Neighbors lent me gardening tools. Someone even offered a bunch of old windows to make a greenhouse. I don't know anything about greenhouses. Well, I guess that's my job, said my husband Frank. A few months later, we were nurturing nearly 2,000 plants. By the end of April, we picked a location for our giveaway. I blogged about it and put an ad in the paper. People started lining up at 8:30 a.m. By noon, we had given almost every plant away, and we had collected nearly 100 pledges in a town of 4,000 people. One family said they would take their harvest to a senior home. Another family planned to grow vegetables for a women's shelter. One more thing, Frank and I had to plant a garden too. His boss lent us 2 vacant acres, and since June, we have been giving away our harvest twice a week. Share with each other. I don't despair so much about the economy in our town anymore. I'm busy following the instructions of the master gardener. The mission of the church is to walk among the suffering and give, for we are covenant keepers, walking rainbows, bringing the hope of the good news to the poor. Seth Reams says, I slouched in my chair in front of the computer, my constant companion since I've lost my job as a concierge. Another morning, waking up, unemployed. I sent out more than 300 resumes, and I've not received a single response. I was feeling demoralized, thinking there must be something wrong with me. You haven't been out of the house in days, my girlfriend Michelle said. Take a break from your job search. Why not volunteer? Maybe at the Audubon Society. A light bulb went off in my head. I wrote a post on Craigslist about pairing up jobless people with volunteer needs. The next day, I got an email from someone else who was out of work. Great idea. Let me know what I can do. We've Got Time to Help was born. Then the phone rang. I have a couch to give a friend who is pregnant and has lost her job. Do you have someone who could get it to her? I emailed our new team of volunteers. Delivering the couch wasn't enough. We pooled our resources. The next day, we delivered the couch along with furniture, toys, and food. You have changed my life, she said, as she watched her apartment transformed. No, I said, you have changed our lives. We have fixed leaky pipes, shingled houses, and painted rooms at an outreach center. Even people with jobs have joined our ranks. I've discovered that it is not about employment, it is about loving your neighbor as yourself. And William says, be my walking rainbows. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.